Welcome to the Shrewdness. We are so excited about this baseball-focused endeavor. As teased in prior episodes, we are doing 15 to 20-minute primers for each MLB team to prepare you for this 2025 season, to help you with your fantasy baseball drafts and future bets, or simply to improve your knowledge as the season begins. From the projected starters to the prospects, we will touch it all and give our shrewd takes on the key to their success. So sit back, take some notes, and enjoy the show.
Hello, Shrewdness fans. Welcome to the latest edition of our Major League Baseball primers for 2025, the upcoming season. We've got a special guest tonight, joined by my good buddy Kerry from college. He's going to talk about the Cardinals. We're going to have Dex kind of moderate the session, but we'll get some color commentary from a real-life Cardinals fan.
They exist.
They do exist.
Best fans on
And
earth.
he's incognito, tucked among the enemy up there in Chicago area. So anyway, Dex, take it away. Tell us about the 2025 cards.
All right. So, yeah, Kerry's up there in the 40th parallel and North Korea version of St. Louis fandom. He's hanging with the enemy in Chicago. But that being said, we are going to talk about their arch rival, the St. Louis Cardinals, who, for many baseball fans, know this, but you may not know this, maybe. I'll throw this out. So, over the last 25 years, they are third in total wins behind the Yankees and Dodgers. That's it. Short list. So St. Louis, a team of tradition, a team of winning. Let's talk about 2025, though. Boy, I don't think it's going to go that direction. I'm going to back up a little bit to what last year was and where we are. Let's just get a state of things for St. Louis. So last year, they finished third in the NL Central, tied with the Cubs, 10 games back, though, of Milwaukee. So that's not ideal. You don't really want to be 10 games back. 2024, Fangraphs had them winning 83. Pacoda had them winning 85. And they actually won 83. So 83 and 79. So Fangraphs nailed it. Nail on the head on that one. So good for them. This year, though, with the offseason acquisitions, oh, wait, there weren't any. We'll get to that. But this year, with nothing happening in the offseason except nothing, Fangraphs has them at 79 wins. Pacoda 77.5. And the over-under, 75.5. Vegas think it's even worse. So, Ali Marmol is still the manager. Boy, John Mozeliak is in his final year as a GM. They got their new GM in-house already, but not really doing anything yet. But, Kerry, what are your initial – how does the season look like from the St. Louis fandom side?
Well, I mean, it's not good. I mean, you've kind of outlined it. I mean, as of, I'm up here in Chicago, like you said, surrounded by Cubs fans. It's very difficult here, especially 2023 when we were last in the NL. So I've just been taking a beating, right? So
yeah,
I've been trying to turn it around. They did better, like you said, with 83 wins in 2024. Just very disappointed, like most Cardinal fans around. Just really no activity on the off season, right? So I think. And we'll get into it, right? I mean, I think this whole Nolan Arenado is kind of holding things up or has held things up kind of as a blockage, but there's really been no activity. So a little disappointing.
Yeah, absolutely. So Nolan Arenado, one of my absolute favorite players in baseball the last decade, easy. I love him. I liked him when he came up with Colorado as a top prospect. I like that he, ironically, came into the league and his hole in the game, according to the evaluators, was defense. Little did they know he was going to practice his A off and start winning platinum gloves and gold gloves every single year. And so that's what he's been doing his entire career. So he still brings the defense. But when the Cardinals had a deal set, and the problem with trying to get him traded this offseason is he had a no-trade list. He narrowed it down to 5 teams. One of those teams was Houston, and they got a deal on paper done with Houston. It was a done deal. And then when they asked him, like, hey, what do you think? He did not think it was a good idea. He did not want to go there.
No, thank you.
Yep, and I think a lot of it is because Houston was also dumping people. I mean, no Alex Bregman. Tucker went up to your neck of the woods, up Chicago for the Cubs, right? So he's like, well, dude, I want to win a championship. Why the hell would I want to go to a team that's getting rid of all their stars? I wanted to augment a good team. So I believe he nixed it for that. And I think he just likes St. Louis. So he's got family and stability. And he got no trade, man. Dude earned it. So that was kind of an issue. And I think if he would have been traded, all the other ones probably would have too. So I know they're looking. Sonny Gray, he declined it. He's like, nah, I'm not. I'm going to put my no trade up because I earned mine too. I don't want to go anywhere. So Sonny Gray stayed. And then Helsley, they didn't end up trading. Fetty, they didn't end up trading. Just nobody. So nobody went anywhere, and they did absolutely nothing. So that is the state of the offseason. So they were rated an F for offseason moves, which makes sense when you do absolutely nothing. But let's try and highlight where they're at, and it's going to look strikingly similar to where they were last year because they ended up losing Tommy Edman, free agent to the Dodgers. Dylan Carlson, they traded midseason last year to Tampa Bay. Paul Goldschmidt to the Yankees. Lance Lynn declined the club option, or the club declined them, let's put it that way. And Kyle Gibson, St. Louis said no thanks. Then Andrew Kittredge out of the bullpen. So they did lose a lot of people. They just didn't bring in
I wanted to ask a real Cardinals fan about another loss that hasn't been annotated here, which wouldn't be considered generally a loss. I need someone to explain to me what happened with Brandon Crawford playing for the Cardinals last year.
I mean, he came over and just sucked up a spot from somebody is what he did.
Why was there a 38-year-old man out there with a fork trailing out of his back for X amount of games last year who was actively making them worse? I watched enough Cardinals to not understand that.
It's a good question. I don't know.
All I know is he's not there anymore. So it makes it easy to discuss from that point.
Did he go somewhere else, or did they just
He
did
retired.
Retire? Retired. Okay.
Yeah, he's apparently the brother-in-law of Garrett Cole. Who knew?
I do remember hearing that. So I think on a Yankees
Completely
podcast
random.
when he was pitching. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so here's
I
what
didn't know if there was some insider they were actively sabotaging by doing it or not.
I do not have inside information. I do.
All right, just check. All right, good. Move on.
All right, so here's their starting lineup. So I'm just kind of rip through it first, and then we'll go talk about each player individually. So starting off, and this is for Fangraphs. So I kind of generally like what they do for their lineup, so I'm going to go with them. So if you're wondering, where did you get this? Fangraphs. So they have Mason Wynn, shortstop, leading off. Alec Burleson, slotted for DH. Wilson Contreras, first base. Brendan Donovan, second base. Nolan Arenado, of course, is going to be at the Keystone, or at third base, I mean. Lars Nootbaar, center field. Jordan Walker, we'll talk about this, though. Right field, so Kerry gave me an update on that, and we'll talk about that later on. Nolan Gorman, slotted for left field. And Ivan Herrera at catcher. So that is the 9 projected starters. There's also going to be some mix with Pedro. I don't know. It's probably Pages, but Pedro Pages. I'm sure it's Pages. That's just, I don't know. Haven't heard that dude's name. So he's a way better defender than Herrera, so he's going to play a lot. Victor Scott, the second, and Michael Ciani will probably see a lot of time in the outfield, either days off or whatever the case may be. But that is the main offense that we're going to be looking at. So starting at the top, Mason Wynn, shortstop. He's good. He's young and he's good. I like him. So 22-year-old, started 150 games last season, /267, 314, 730 OPS, with 15 homers, 57 RBIs, and 11 stolen bases. That is nothing to sneeze at right there. That's pretty good for a 22-year-old. Had a 4.9 WAR. I think he had 32 doubles I have on here, and that's pretty amazing. So his goal, his self-stated spring training goal, which I always like goals, so much optimism in February and March. So he wants to have 30 to 40 stolen bases, so he wants to triple his last year's total. So, Kerry, what are you hearing for Mason Wynn? How do you like him at the top of the lineup?
I like him. I mean, beginning of the year, though, he's 0 for 15, right? So he's off to a slow start. Not to be concerned, right? But the only base he stole, he got thrown out. So he's not really off to a good start. But again, it's obviously very early. There's a lot of excitement around him. He's kind of future of the Cardinals, I think.
Absolutely.
Young guy, consistent guy, very excited about. So, no, I feel really good about Mason at the top.
Yep. So I think if we just left it right there, we could be pretty optimistic about the Cardinals. But we got to go down the lineup. So Alec Burleson, and I'm kind of just a little bit. So Alec Burleson, left-handed hitter. So 26-year-old, rose up last season to honestly be their most consistent bat. He had a 1.2 WAR, 269, 314, Slugged 420, which isn't the greatest, but it's not horrible. And 21 home runs, which led the team, and 78 RBIs, 9 stolen bases even. So he even got a little frisky on the base paths. So he can play outfield, so he's not completely devoid. He's not a DH because he can't play anywhere else. And frankly, if there's any injuries, he'd probably pop right out to the outfield because they're not going to take his bat out of the lineup. But that's kind of where we are with Alec Burleson. I think he's got some upside. Again, 26, 27, 28-year-olds I love, and he's 26, so he's going into his best years. What's your take on Alec Burleson, Kerry?
Yeah, I like him. I think to his advantage with Jordan Walker getting hurt today, which is kind of latest news, he'll get more opportunities. I think that was the big concern there, that he wouldn't have the opportunities, but now I think space is opening up for him, if you will. I mean, he's designated as the designated hitter and I think first base, but he's got to share that, right, with Wilson. That's going to be the problem for him. But I think we'll get some more play time depending on what the news is with Jordan Walker.
Well, hope that one's not too bad either. We'll talk about it a little bit, but Jordan Walker, boy, that is someone, we'll just kind of skip down to him. He is got so much raw talent, man. It is a disgusting amount of raw talent, and he showed it, and he displays it at times. But, man, he took a big step back last year, and especially in fantasy leagues, so many people were taking the bet on him, and for good reason. I mean, he showed that he could. He's 22 years old and was just absolutely destroying the minors, just destroying it. Like, no one else was really doing much better. In 2022 or 2023, he did pretty well. Didn't have too many games, and that was as a 20-year-old. But then last year, he could not build on that. So he got demoted to AAA after batting .201, a .253 on base, and a kind of a measly .619 slug when this guy should be .900. So that is obviously not what they want to do. But the key is kind of he just needs to be in the lineup, right, and get more swings. He's 6'6", 245. He is a freaking moose. He's an imposing figure in the batter's box. But for him, he's got to get the walk rate up and the K rate down. Did you hear what kind of injury he had today?
It's a left knee injury. They need to look at it more, but they're not really sure. They took him out of the game.
Yeah, you don't need that in the outfield. Fantastic. So Jordan Walker, hopefully he just tweaked it and he's back in soon, but who knows?
He would not be the first 22-year-old to struggle right after a good rookie year.
Yeah.
Major league pitchers adjust faster than major league hitters that are 22. So
yep.
It doesn't surprise me that guys like that have an off year. They'll adjust and he'll bounce back if he's got that much talent. So,
I think either like him or love him. If you talk to the Cardinal fans, I mean, you really like him because remember when he first came out 2 years ago.
He's on fire.
Awesome, yeah. I mean, people still remember that, and he still has that talent there, obviously. But lately, down the stretch, just last year, very high strikeout rate, right? I mean, like 26, 27%, I think I read.
Yeah.
He ended the year with 32 strikeouts, the last 100 plate appearance.
That's not good.
No.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, that first year he came up as a 20-year-old, I think he had a 12-game hitting streak to start the season, too. You got to start high. Like, why aren't you doing this all the time? Obviously, it's easy for you, but that's not what Major League Baseball does. So it is a humbling game, to say the least. So let's go to one of the hitters St. Louis is going to be counting on to deliver this year, one of them. But Wilson Contreras, he's a crusty veteran, 32-year-old, three-time All-Star. This dude actually rakes when he's healthy. No one really does much when you're not, but he was limited with forearm and a pinky fracture last year, so he only had 84 games. But even in the time he played, though, he still had a career-high 136 OPS plus, which is, I mean, that's really good. 100 is average. The 136 is elite. It's super good. So he had a 262, 380 on base, 848 slug, and he had 15 home runs and 36 RBIs. Again, that's in 80 games, so that's half a season. That's 30-72 and taking care of business if he can do a full season. So he's going to be DH and first base this year. And for fantasy purposes,
848 slug or 848 OPS?
OPS, my bad. Yep.
Okay.
Said the wrong thing. But he's no longer be eligible for catcher in fantasy leagues this year. So that's going to kind of hurt. And as a first baseman, there's probably some better options out there. But if you miss on all the early guys, he's not going to be the worst one to get. But he's certainly not a top 1 or 2 tier first baseman, in my opinion, especially at 32. But that being said, he's draftable, but it's just if you missed everybody else. Any news on Wilson Contreras from the locals?
No, you nailed it, right? I mean, I typically don't like first base is kind of a retirement home sometimes. Not a retirement home, but I wish there was like dedicated. I mean, but it's where people go that like to hit or for the DH, right? Especially when the National League went to DH, which I get it. And I think surprising, at least to me and to other Cardinal fans, maybe as far as how well he's hitting. And then like you nailed it, as far as less risk to injury, obviously, and get healthy, focus on his hitting. I think there's definitely an upside to him. So excited about it.
I mean, I kind of wish we had his brother, William, but Wilson will work. We'll have to go with that. Slated in the cleanup spot, which I don't think it'll really be him. I think it'll be Arenado there. But Fangraphs thinks it's going to be Brendan Donovan. I like Brendan Donovan. So he's a left-handed, kind of a utility guy. He can play all over the place. He can play some outfield. He can play all over the infield. He's only 28. Good hitter with good contact, 2.6 WAR, /278, 342 with a 759 OPS last year. 14 homers, 79 RBIs, and I like this, 47 walks, 81 Ks. That's pretty good, especially in today's league. That's amazing when you can stay under 100 Ks. So it's a 2022 Gold Glove, solid, dependable, good character guy in the locker room. I like Brendan Donovan, so you could certainly do worse than having him in your lineup. He's just kind of a professional hitter. So what's your take on old Brendan?
Yeah, no, I kind of look at the players, the good, the bad, the ugly. I got him to the left. I got him to good for sure. I think he's about ready to sign a contract, so I'm sure he's excited about that. I mean, as far as what I read, he's soon to reach a deal, something similar to what they did with Tommy Edman. Edman did a 2-year, $16.5 million extension. So I like him. I mean, you talk about him being a utility. He can play basically any part of the infield and then obviously outfield. So, no, I like him a lot.
I do too. I think on this team, that's just something that is going to be valuable, is being able to play multiple places. Lou, you got anything to talk about for the initial top half of the lineup?
I was going to ask, did Donovan hit anywhere in the middle of the lineup last year? I always had him in my head as like a number 2 hitter, but
yeah, I think that's where he was last year a lot of the time. I had him in fantasy, so
curious why they have him listed at cleanup this spring, but
well, because there's no Goldschmidt anymore, and that hurts. They got to put somebody there.
Can't leave it vacant. Yeah.
Again, my take is I watched more Cardinals baseball last year than I've watched in a long time for a variety of reasons. And Nolan Arenado, I don't think I've ever seen a baseball player more checked out than that dude. I mean, he was just not there. Most time you see folks that are locked in, and I was really shocked at somebody who was that talented, who was that like apathetic to what was going on around him. It's kind of weird, like especially when you think he's trying to get to a place where he can then maybe go somewhere else. And it sounds like all the Cardinals fans kind of want him to go somewhere else because of it. So that's what worries me about him. I mean, he's amazing, but is he going to play, or is he just going to kind of like blow through the rest of his contract?
Yeah, that's good segue. So next up on the order, Nolan Arenado, 33-year-old former MVP candidate. I think he was top 3. I know he was top 5 like a handful of times, top 3 a couple times. But last year was kind of a career worst, 2.6 WAR. And kind of across the board, these are all like his lowest numbers, but they're not horrible. But when you're spending like close to $30 million, you expect more. But
so last year was the first year, he's been in the league since 2013, that he didn't win a single award. But he literally won an award every single year from 2013 through 2023. He was either an all-star, MVP ballot, top 10. He was Gold Glove. He was Silver Slugger.
Gold Gloves.
Yeah, 10 in a row. So 10 Gold Gloves in a row. That streak ended last year. 8 all-star appearances in a row. That ended. 5 times Silver Slugger. But a 272, 325, 394 slug, which is god-awful, man. Just god-awful. Very similar to Brendan Donovan. 16 homers and 71 RBIs. And Dom was 14 and 79 and making about, $24 million less. So he just lost all pop. So it was his career worst exit velo, hard hit, barrel rate, the worst of his career. So, and the thing is, the last couple of years, he was good, like really good. And so to see him drop off that far, that fast, oh my gosh, he's turned into a Chris Bryant on this team that the Rockies are having to endure with that anchor in the middle of their lineup, and not in a good way. Anchor pulling him down to the bottom of the sea. So hopefully Nolan can turn it around. But you see any hope for Nolan this year, Kerry? What are you thinking on him?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look and do some, further digging and further research, it looks like he's doing some, I think it's called Tai Bo, kind of kickboxing. I don't know if you've seen kind of to get his hips going. And,
There we go.
I was reading an
Kick
article
that ball.
today. That was interesting. I mean, I guess you can kind of connect the dots there a little bit. But, I mean, in the data, from at least what I said today, he hit the ball harder than he's ever hit it at 108 miles an hour, which is harder than last season, what topped out at 107.5.
That's elite.
And
That works.
so he's obviously got the talent. I mean, obviously he's had a bad year. I still have a hangover from, like I said, 2023 when they, shipped the bed, so to speak. So, yeah, I mean, I think he's fine. I think he's got a good attitude. Obviously, with all the controversy stuff surrounding him, I think it could have went really sideways really fast. I think he's a professional. At least that's the way he's carrying himself in the interviews and things. So.
Yeah.
Obviously, there could be a trade. I mean, I saw something today about the Dodgers and was it Kim, the Korean player, infielder?
Yep.
So he's not checking out as well as they think. So there's rumors out there that Dodgers may be interested again. So we'll see. But I hope not. I like him. I hope we keep him. But that's the Cardinal fan talking. So
Yeah,
we'll see
it's
what
not
happens.
like the Dodgers need to get any better. They don't need more gold gloves and
That's true
more
too. Yeah.
bats in that lineup.
Yeah,
Do you think so? To Lewis's point, do you think last season he was struggling personally? He's seeing the team struggle. Do you think some of the apathy or just like, I don't know, or attitude maybe last year, is that just a function of the year he was having, or do you think that was like the beginning of his departure from the Cardinals organization? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a good question. I mean, to me, I think, you win as a team, you lose as a team. So if the team's not doing well, I mean, you look for the senior guys or the veteran guys to pick it up, which would be him, right? I mean,
Absolutely
you'd expect him to lead. Again, I go back to 2023, which 2 years ago, I mean, it was just hard to watch. It was just everybody feeding on everyone and just not being negative, but just kind of pulling everyone down, it felt like. So to answer your question, I think it's more of the team. I think he's a team player. He's obviously still a veteran. I think he's got it in him. Yeah, I look for an upside this year. So.
Yeah, he's only 32. He's still got a couple years left. We've had plenty of older players out there that are starting for other teams.
Absolutely.
So,
33 and 322 days, so he's 34.
This is his age 34 season, correct?
Yeah,
but
he'll be 34
I don't know.
yeah.
I mean, the
opening
dude,
day.
yeah, he's got
just
a
past
Hall of
opening
Fame resume. I like to trust that guy can probably do a couple more years, especially when you see like Nelly Cruz did it to 40, and
Pujols played late 30s. He definitely dropped off after he left the Cardinals, but
yeah, I'm hoping we get
guys like that.
one more good year out of Nolan because again, he's one of my favorite players in baseball. I really like watching him play the game.
Yeah, again, I mean, I think it's working on his bat speed. I know that's just one part of the game type deal, but no, I think he's working. I think he's serious about it. I think, again, with all the different stress and distractions around him about this trade talk. I mean,
Yeah, that had to not have been a normal offseason. I don't care what they say.
Right.
When you're
for sure.
just being told, hey, so we're going a different direction, and you ain't in it. So, God, where can we
I'm
send
gonna check you a little bit on the Hall of Fame thing.
Dude, he's
Surprisingly close. He's not there, but he's way closer on his advanced statistics for Hall of Fame than I thought. He's
I mean, it's
within
hard for
striking
a
distance. He
10-time
needs-
Gold Glove, 8-time All-Star to not be on that kind of list. I mean, he's been arguably one of the best players in baseball, specifically at third base.
According to the Hall of Fame monitor, it looks like he would likely be in the Hall of Fame standards. He is not.
Gotcha.
He's
Well, not yet.
all over the place. He needs to have a couple, 3 more good seasons to really kind of cement an option.
I'd like to see that
Yeah.
happen. I'd like to see that happen.
He's not quite there yet.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go on to our next guy, Lars Nootbaar. I mean, kind of the thing that stands out most about Lars Nootbaar is I love the World Baseball Classic, so I'm one of those kind of geeks on that stuff. And he was playing for Team Japan, so I guess one of his parents is from Japan. This is kind of funny. He was sitting over there, and he was in the winning dugout for that one because Shohei Ohtani. But that was kind of a interesting kind of little nugget for old Lars. But center field left-hander, he's 27-year-old who hits a lot of ground balls, man. So he hits them really hard. Like, he kills those worms. They are dead on arrival. But 1.5 WAR. He gets on base. He has good at-bats, good plate discipline. So even though his average a little struggle bus, 244, his on base was 342. That's nothing to sneeze at. And a 758 OPS. I mean, the counting stats, though, this is where, like, for fantasy purposes, I ain't touching them. 12 home runs, 45 RBIs in kind of a half season. So even if you doubled it, which he's not going to get all that time, I don't know. I'm not super excited. I know people in St. Louis are, though. I don't know why, though. I just don't get it. Carrie, tell me why people are excited about Lars Nootbaar.
Well, I think there's two reasons. Number one, he's got a cool nickname. I mean, Newt is easy to say and it's easy to root for, which is really slick. And then he ended the year. I hear what you're saying, but he ended the year on a high note. He batted 323 in September, 4 home runs, 16 RBIs. So yeah, he did have a slow start to the year. And they returned from the injury, but
yeah. So you like him more than I do. Is that the takeaway?
That's the takeaway. That's by most of the comments. I think that's the truth.
That is kind of interesting. Like, we've talked in previous episodes about guys that really fall off in August and September. The season wears on you, takes a mental toll, physical toll, and they just kind of coast. But it sounds like he's one of the few that actually picked it up a notch the last 4 or 6 weeks of the season.
Yep. Well, he's in his prime. Again, we love 26, 27, 28. That's our favorite little years on the Shrewdness here. And so he's hitting 27. Yep. So if he's going to deliver, as Lou said, it's time for him to post. So if this dude's going to go 25 and 100 and bat anywhere in the upper 200s, that'd be great. So let's see what Lars does this year. I guess I'm not anti-Lars, but he'd be my 5th outfielder in any kind of fantasy draft. All right, Jordan Walker, we talked about him already. Hopefully he can rebound from whatever this knee injury is. And then if he does get back, hopefully he can start hitting the ball instead of the air because he's a good windmill right now. We got to get him doing more energy to the ball. Nolan Gorman. This is another guy that the Cardinals desperately need to turn it on. They had super high hopes. Again, early, I think his first-round pick. And if not, he just got quickly up the rankings. We're a top prospect. But he's normally a second baseman. So they got him slotted for left field right now. And, boy, this spring training, he's 1 for 15 so far. And spring stats, I don't really care about. But for a dude that needs to show something because he got sent to the minors last year for being god-awful, he's 1 for 15 with 9 Ks to start off spring training. And it's not like he's going against the top pitchers, man. It's early spring training. He's going against his randos. So 24-year-old power hitter. He and Jordan Walker both took steps back last year. Both had good 2023s. Both had atrocious 24s and got sent to the minors. But 2023, this is what the Cardinals are hoping on. This is what's going to latch on for hope. 27 home runs, 76 RBIs, in only 119 games. So that is what they're hoping to get back.
Wow.
Carrie, what have you been seeing on Nolan Gorman other than the spring training stats were atrocious? And I've been hearing rumor mills that he's working on his swing. And I don't know if I like hearing that.
Yeah, I would say it's pretty negative. I mean, I know you just went through all the reasons why to be concerned about his play
concerns
this year.
are high.
Concerns are high. It's a good way. Is a good way to put it. So, I think at one point they looked at him maybe to go to third base if Arenado was traded, and then second base.
That's
and
what he came up as a third base prospect. That's
right.
Coming up, and then he needed a spot, so they stuck him at second base.
That's right.
But he kind of has no home. He's not that good of an outfielder either, to be honest.
When you're coming up behind a 10-time Gold Glover at third, time to find a new spot. At least temporarily land.
Yeah, I think we had a better team, or I don't know how I would say it. I mean, I don't know if he'd still be on the team or he'd be playing the minors type deal. I mean, I think there's extended patience with him maybe a little bit, but I'm not high on him. Of the lineup, that'd be the one I'd be the most worried about. Not making it. So,
yeah, he kind of reminds me a little bit. I don't know if you would see the same parallel, but Tyler O'Neill, when he was kind of coming up early and young, he also took a step back one year after some promise, and then because the Cardinals lost all the value with him, but then he came back with a huge year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Nolan Gorman, I like to believe that he can find his swing because, by all accounts, he seems like he's got all the tools. It seems like it's in his head right now, man. The see ball, hit ball, just go hit the damn thing.
Mm-hmm.
But his K rate's too high and walk rate's too low, and it was trending the right direction until last season. So hopefully he can figure it out, especially turn on spring training. Dude just needs a little confidence, I think. All right, so this brings us to projected 9-hitter in the lineup. It's actually a pretty good offense. Ivan Herrera, so right-handed bat. He's only 24 years old, but he is clearly an offense-first catcher because this dude, I think I can throw out more base runners. So he threw out 4 of 59 last year. 4. That's it. Like, God, I know they made the base like a thumb bigger, but good Lord, buddy. Like, put your back into it. Throw it down to second and third. What the hell? So he's a defensive liability, but apparently he's pretty good at framing and not allowing pass balls, which that's good. But with RoboUmp potentially coming in the future, framing ain't going to be doing much. So he needs to still throw out people. That's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, kind of a yin and yang between Ivan Herrera and Pedro. You got the defense and the offense. So pick your battle.
I noticed you didn't say his last name either.
I didn't.
Because boy,
I thought I knew it until you was worried about saying it, pronouncing it correctly. So
I should have looked it up.
I thought it was Pages, but I guess obviously I'm not correct on that. But
no, it might be. It still could be Pages.
It might be.
Like we already had the Tampa show where we were talking about Low and Lau, the Low Laus. So he might be the Paje Pages guy.
Laulos. We ended up on Laulos.
Exactly. So we got the Laulo brothers, and then we got Pedro Pajes Pages.
Yeah, so it just depends if you're looking. I mean, it's really that simple as far as you want the bat or you want the defense, because it's two different extremes. I might be exaggerating a little bit, but I think you nailed it right there. Right. So it's actually interesting that last year Pages started more games than Herrera, but I think the outlook is that Ivan Herrera is going to play more games or start more this year.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they're going to want to try to get some offense.
Usually offense wins out, and then you bring in your defensive guy in the 8th inning.
But you know what?
The last inning or so.
I think one particular pitcher, I'll go through the whole staff, but I think the one who led the league in hits allowed, he might want Paez back there to throw these guys out instead of Herrera, who just lets them go around the bases unchecked. So as we go into the staff, so yeah, Miles Michaelis is the reference there. He is poop on a stick, but we'll talk about him in a second. Sonny Gray. I like Sonny Gray. He's very good. He's a legit ace. He's a number one he can be kind of proud of. Even though it's only a 1.8 WAR, which I was surprised to see that, he was really good. So he's 35-year-old, brought over to St. Louis last year to try and win now with Arenado and Goldie, and he did his part. So he struck out 30% of the batters he faced, and 203 Ks to 39 walks over 166 innings. So a 5-to-1 K to walk ratio is super elite. That is really good. He finished 13-9 with a 3.84 ERA, a 1.09 WHIP. Nothing to say except good things for Sonny Gray. I like him. He didn't want to get traded this offseason, which is fine, but he's going to at least be a front part that's stable for this Cardinals rotation.
Yeah, I mean, one word, stud. I mean, 35 years old kind of scares you, but he came off one of the best seasons he's ever had, right?
Absolutely.
So, intelligent guy, obviously very talented. He wants to play for the Cardinals. I mean, I'm really looking forward to watching him play this year. Those are good.
Yep.
So, Lou, I need a little help. How did this guy only have a 1.8 WAR when he's got such
I don't get it.
good numbers? I mean, 13-9 is not elite, but it's still a winning record. 5-to-1 Ks to walks.
I'm not a smart man. Okay, let's just start with that, because as much as you're doing the 1.8, what's going on with that? I'm on Eric Fetty, and I have been while you guys have been talking for the last 30 minutes, and I've been like trying to figure the world out because none of it makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm comparing to.
Yeah, so segueing into number two. Number two, Eric Fetty, brought over last year from the White Sox when White Sox were in absolute garage sale mode. Get rid of everybody that has anything. Eric Fetty, 5.6 WAR combined last year. 32-year-old, and he was basically out of the league. No, basically, he was. In 2023, he sent himself to Korea in 2023, and like Miles Michaelis, which I can't remember if it's Korea, I think it was, or Japan, kind of just figured this stuff out. He's now what you consider a very solid MLB arm. And last year, combined stats were really good. 31 games started. I mean, anytime you're over 30 in today's game, that's right there. 177 innings, 154 Ks, a 3.3 ERA, and a 1.16 WHIP. That's pretty darn good. So
I need a second here. I I gotta go through this.
Yeah.
So he was the 6th highest WAR starting pitcher in baseball.
Good Lord. Maybe it's because of the White Sox.
It was okay. I'm getting to it. Scooble, Hunter Green, Chris Sale, Zach Wheeler, Paul Skeens, then Eric Fetty, and then a couple.
I don't understand the system.
How he didn't get a single Cy Young vote, I don't understand. Like, this is all bizarre. I guess he was in 2 leagues, and that guy probably got part of it, but that's insane. And then he's also got all this other weird stuff where his ERA was 3.3, but somehow his opponent's runs per game was 7. And I don't understand how that works. It's like an outlier amongst the best pitchers in baseball. They all have like a number around 3.
Gave up a lot of runs on errors, I guess?
No, because I looked at his runs. I don't understand how that statistic is calculated. But the other thing that was fascinating is park factor. Wherever he pitched was twice as pitcher friendly as literally every other major pitcher who pitched well. Like it was 2 times. However, I guess White Sox have a very pitcher friendly park, and then I guess St. Louis also does too. And then it also matters to exactly where he pitched on the road, and somehow it just kind of bounced into he always was in the absolute best park he could be in.
Biggest parks. Yeah.
It was unreal. Like a 200, so 100 is average, right? Anything below 100 is you have to fight against. Where I'm sure the Rockies are like a 1 or something like that, right?
That's the bottom.
But his was 203. It's just insane.
Wow.
Like he got so much of that WAR from and value from where he was pitching.
Like ballpark
That's
effects,
weird.
basically.
That seems kind of like an inflated fake WAR then to me.
It
I would take
probably
Sonny Gray.
Yeah, it probably is to a certain extent.
All right.
So it's fascinating that it's that high, and it's hard to explain. And what's his career WAR?
That's probably 5.4.
5.2.
I was gonna say it's gotta be below the 5.6
Actually
of last
was
year.
worse than replacement for the rest of his career, and then was 6th in all of baseball. I don't understand any of this.
That's awesome. Oh, stats! Boy, do we love stats.
Well.
And he's 32, so
yeah. So that leads us to number 3. So this is not a young buck rotation. And even though he was apparently in a pitcher-friendly park in St. Louis, Miles Michaelis did not have a friendly season. So he, 36 years old, and he just looked like ash last year. So just rocked repeatedly. Second worst ERA among qualifiers over the last 2 seasons. The 5 ERA. So he's been bad, and he's been bad for, years now.
700 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 171 innings, and I don't know. It's one of those things we always kind of make jokes about. So he had 122 Ks, 171 innings, and only 22 walks, but 194 hits allowed in 171 innings. I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's the last year of his contract, though, so at least the dude's getting paid to be bad. $18.5 million a year. He's just sleeping on a bed of money. Man, they cannot wait for this contract to be over.
Right. No, he's got a great mustache. I guess that's about it.
He does. And 4 years ago, he was good.
Yeah, and he'd be the guy you'd want on your side in a bar fight. I mean, I remember kind of someone gets beamed on our team, then he'll beam the next guy. But yeah, you're right. I mean, ERA 5.35, 4.78 the last 2 years. This is his final swan song, I'm sure.
There's no more contracts for him. So, Miles, this is your last steps.
He's like the opposite of effectively wild. He's like shoot in the zone.
Yeah.
He's not going to walk anybody, but he's going to give up a ton of hits.
Yeah, the 22 walks over 171 innings is super impressive. It's opposite of impressiveness. I'm almost so impressed you can give up 194 hits. That just seems hard to do. That is batting practice. Like, if you just had a little metal machine hucking it at you, I feel like he'd give up less hits. It's like, God, he just grooves in strikes all the time. So, anyway, no high hopes for Miles Michaelis. He is undraftable. Don't even pretend to look at him. Even if he fakes you out with one good game, leave him on the sidelines.
Agreed.
All right, so that brings us up. Here's where the interesting stuff comes. So, again, Fangraphs has Andre Palante and Matz is 4 and 5, and I think even looking at the early comments by Marmol, that is kind of what they're looking at too. And Palante is a 26-year-old converted reliever, which is kind of weird. Normally it goes the other way. Normally the starters go to the bullpen. But this dude has got elite ground ball rate, the 98th percentile in the league, and the fewest barrel rates, again, among the top 2% in the league. So his sinker just dives down all the time. So in 20 games started last year, 8-8, 356 ERA, a 1.25, little high, but 88 Ks to 43 walks, which again, not elite by any means. 2-1, which I hate that. I'm a 4-1 guy, but for a mid-rotation starting pitcher who throws a crap load of ground balls and with a good defense behind him, he could do worse. I think he's a good 3-4 guy. What's your take on Palante, Carey? What do you like about him, or what are you worried about, or what do you think?
No, I mean, I think that's a good insight for sure. I mean, it makes sense looking at the stats as you just talked about, as far as he gets hit a lot, or I'm sorry, there's bat contact. So the last game on Tuesday, there was 42 swings and 41 hit the ball, right? But to your point, they're all ground balls, which is good, right? So the other thing I picked up on was he's losing some velocity, which isn't a bad thing. Maybe he throws more curveballs. I mean, but if he's getting the job done as far as getting the ball down, I think that's good. It's always interesting to me when they bring relievers out to be starters, and he is kind of young, it seems like. But
and I know, Peru, you talked about this on an earlier episode. The ground ball pitchers, kind of an advantage of them is they can usually eat up more innings and save your bullpen.
Yeah, especially, and that is interesting. If he's losing velocity, that might be a reason they are trying to make him a starter. Because usually the back end guys are swing and miss type guys that can come in and get a big strikeout in a key situation. But you need the guys too that are a little softer throwers, but can keep the ball in the zone and play to contact and just eat up innings, get you 6 innings a start type thing, and give you a chance every time they go out there instead of taxing the bullpen.
Absolutely. And I think this dude can probably deliver a crap load of quality starts. So if you have a league that rewards that kind of stat, again, a quality start is really a 4.50 ERA. So it's 6 innings, 3 runs.
3 runs or less.
Yep. But the other day that spins out to a 4.5 ERA. But in real life, that's a pretty solid mid-rotation, back-rotation guy. It's consistent. Again, he'll eat the innings for the bullpen to save them. Because, again, pitching after Miles Michaelis, that bullpen's going to be tired. So we got to make sure that's what's up. So let me go to the projected 5th starter, Steven Matz. So left-handed pitcher. I feel like we've been talking about Steven Matz in baseball forever because we have. He came up as a young prospect for the Mets. And in my head, I always kind of had him as a Steve Avery. So from the mid-'90s Braves rotations with Maddox, Smoltz, Glavine, and then there's just kind of like, oh, Steve Avery. Well, that's kind of what Steven Matz was to the Black Knight, DeGrom, Thor on the Mets. He's just like, oh, and Steven Matz. So,
right.
But now he's just kind of like this perma-injured guy. He just doesn't ever stay on the field. He can't stay on the bump. There's always something wrong with him, either elbows or shoulders or hamstrings or quads or big toe, man. I don't know what the hell's wrong with him, but right now he's healthy. He's made his 3rd spring training start as of today, I think. So, I don't know. I guess if he stays healthy, he can be a serviceable 5. But Steven Matz, does he inspire confidence for you, Carey, or you just kind of like can't wait to see some of our prospects?
Yeah, I think the latter, right? I think that's going to happen now. They got a lot of good prospects. I'm sure we'll get into that. But it's his last year of his 4-year contract.
Yep.
So I don't think no one's expecting much from him.
Well, it's good he hadn't done it yet. So
he is a lefty. He's the one lefty. We've had several rotations now that are just stocked full of righties.
Yep.
So you at least get consideration, I think, if you're a left-handed starter in this league. So
yeah, that
may be the only reason they've got him penciled in there for now. But
I know, I think so too. And so now I want to go into the 2 exciting pitchers, more exciting. They kind of bring a little hope and optimism to the Cardinals fans and the rotation specifically. So Michael McGreevy, he's a right-hander again, 24-year-old, former 18th overall pick in 2021, has elite control, elite ground ball rates throughout the minors, and in September last year, so this is kind of why there's hope and optimism, which, again, can be easily derailed by 4 crappy starts in April. But 3 games started in September, 23 innings pitched, an 18-2 K to walk ratio, 1.96 ERA, a .78 whip. So his minor league numbers aren't this good, But hey, he's got Major League Baseball defenders behind him too, so maybe that helps. And apparently, the ballpark effects help. So, are you excited about Michael McGreevy?
I am. I mean, just based on the stats that you said, I didn't do a lot of research on him. I know people are, excited about him.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think he should be pretty good. Prue, have you heard much about this guy?
I'm looking at other sites, kind of checking different places and what they're saying this spring, and he's listed as in the starting five.
Yeah.
A couple of the different websites. So,
I mean, I don't think it'd take much just to cut Michaelis.
yeah.
That dude.
Spot open soon, yeah.
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 I mean, that's just pure ineptitude, and who cares about money at this point?
The September you mentioned, the 3 starts.
Yep.
It's a small sample size, but it does give you some insight what the guy could do.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
He's not going to pitch that way for 31 starts, but if
no,
he
but
gives
as long
you,
as he can do it for a large chunk of them, that'd be helpful.
yeah, if he gives you 20 that are in that ballpark, that's probably 12 to 15 wins.
Absolutely.
You pitch like that over and over, so that's
All
what
right.
you need.
And this brings me to the pitcher I am most excited about, he's only pitched 2 spring innings and 2 shutout innings, but Quinn Matthews, left-handed pitcher. So 24-year-old, pitched in the All-Star Futures game last year and should make a case to be in the rotation this season, I hope. So I'm very optimistic, and here's why. So since he's been drafted in college, he's added 4 to 5 miles an hour on his fastball. That is
nice.
Awesome. So now he's upper 90s. So he was low 90s, which is kind of like, in today's game, man, that's called batting practice. We call you Miles Michaelis. But adding 4 or 5 now, he turned that into a season, the minor league pitcher of the year. So across the minors last year. So he was the second pitcher in the minor league since 2011. So going back 13, 14 years that had 200 Ks in the season. So that is something Cardinals fans to get excited about, is seeing Quinn Matthews. And again, he's a lefty. So Steven Matz better be looking over his shoulder like, oh, crap, they finally got someone else. But I am pumped to see Quinn Matthews pitch. I hope he has a great spring. I hope he just kind of runs right through. I don't know if they'll put him in AA or AAA this season. I assume AAA, but they could start him at AA first and then kind of have him run up the ladder. Have you heard much about Quinn Matthews, Kerry?
No, I mean, everything that you've said, obviously not just to, repeat what you've said, but no, everyone's very excited about Quinn for sure. He was Pac-12 Conference Pitcher of the Year. His overall performance in the minor leagues, like you've kind of summed it up, a 2.6 ERA. There's the 200 plus strikeouts, over 140 innings. I mean, he's left hand too, which is really desirable as well. So no, everyone's excited to see him come up, the right way and be ready for the big leagues.
What kind of size is this kid? Is he like Randy Johnson lefty, or is he a normal sized human?
I'm not sure. I actually didn't look that part up. I don't remember him being huge. Normally that stands out, and I always usually write that down. So I think he must be normal size, probably 6'3", 6'4", not 6'9", like we've talked about some of these guys.
It is amazing that you can add 4 to 5 miles an hour to your fastball.
Yeah.
And not be that big. So I could see with the super long arms or something, you tweak a little thing and gain some.
Yep.
But for a normal sized guy to gain that much after you've pitched for presumably 6 or 8 years, it's pretty impressive. So that is something to be excited about if you're a Cardinals fan.
So looking at him now, I guess he was a pretty big kid, 6'5", but skinny, 188. He's a Slim Jim. Yeah, and I guess initially,
maybe he put on 10 pounds. That was what gave him that extra 4 or 5 miles an hour.
So in 2022, he was drafted by the Tampa Bay Rays in the 19th round, and then he didn't actually go in. And then 2 years later, St. Louis got him in the 4th round, so he moved up 15 rounds. So that's
okay.
Okay.
I think he's not one of these super high draft picks, which is also kind of surprising that he was that good. But hopefully, here's the hoping, man. If he comes in, just dominates, that'd be great.
Sounds like from a fantasy perspective, he might be a good flyer in one of your late round picks.
Absolutely, especially if you have
keep
minor
an eye on
spots.
him this spring, but just given the uncertainty of a couple of those guys in their starting rotation, he could find himself pitching pretty quickly, and and racking up strikeouts. It
Exactly.
sounds
There's
like.
definitely an appetite there to bring up the young guys.
Yeah.
For all the reasons we talked about, for sure.
I think a lot if they have a struggle bus kind of first half and are just no doubt sellers, that'll open up roster spots all over the place for some of these guys. So one of the ones that might be moved to the trade deadline, and they probably should have moved in this offseason to get more, but you never know. Sometimes these teams get desperate and you can get some really good packages at the trade deadline. But let's go to the bullpen and start off with just the beast, Ryan Helsley. So closer for the St. Louis Cardinals, delivered a major league best 49 saves last year, setting the franchise record for the Cardinals, which I guess that is a lot. I mean, Todd Worrell was pretty darn close a couple years, but 49 saves, franchise record, averaged 100 miles an hour on his fastball, is going to be a free agent next year, which is what I was saying. The team would probably want a full year if they're going to get him. And his value cannot be higher right now. So stats, 7-4, 49 saves, 66 innings with a 79.23 K to walk ratio, a 2.04 ERA, and a 1.1 whip last season. So they may not have won too many games. I mean, they weren't horrible last year, 83 wins, but he certainly closed the door on a whole bunch of them. So over half was all him finishing on the bump on those games. So Helsley, are you glad we still have him, Kerry? Or are we should we have gotten some value instead, gotten some peeps?
No. I am excited about him. I don't like just trading off or selling off our good team. We need to hold on to some people. I was surprised or reminded about the 49 saves. That is pretty impressive. And the 2.04 ERA. No, I mean, I'm we need some pitching. I know he's obviously the closer, but we need something that's consistent.
Reliable.
Reliable. Yeah.
Should he get traded? The other two guys that are pretty solid back there, Ryan Fernandez, Jojo Romero, and one Fernandez is a right-hander, Romero's a left-hander, 26-year-old, 28-year-old. So they're both used in high leverage situations. They're pretty darn good. So Romero had 30 holds last year. I think I remember it was 8th in the league or top 8, top 10, somewhere in there. But 65 games, 59 innings pitched, 7-3, 3.36 ERA, 115 WHIP, and not a huge K ratio, but 51-16. That's pretty good. But it's not like he didn't even get 9 K per 9. So when you're under that as a reliever, it's kind of like you don't have that swing and miss stuff necessarily. But he also wasn't walking anybody. So he is someone, if Helsley gets traded, he could potentially step in for save opportunities. So keep that on your fantasy mind and radar just in case that happens. Another guy that was always one of their top prospects, pitching prospects, probably because he's a lefty, is Matt Liberatore. So I want this guy to be good, and he just hasn't been yet. So he's a 25-year-old who just didn't do anything. He had 6 games started last year, just didn't do much. So they sent him to the bullpen. At one point, though, he is the organization's top prospect and top pitching prospect, kind of one of the top in all of baseball. But I just don't know how he's going to get above Matthews and McGreevy right now. I don't know. It's going to take losing a couple of these guys or injuries to get him in the rotation. They're still stretching him out as a starter in the spring. But I think come opening day, he's going to be sitting down in the bullpen. Have you heard anything new about Liberatore, or what's your thoughts on him, Kerry?
Yeah, I really haven't. I mean, it's one of the pitchers I didn't do a lot of research on. I know it's a familiar name. There's some interest in him, obviously, but no, I can't really add to what you've talked about. It will be interesting to see.
It's been prospect talk for so long. It's like, well, I can't wait till Matt Liberatore comes up, and then he's up, and it's like,
If I'm just looking up and down the lineup here, or the potential lineup, you got a 25-year-old Liberatore. You got 24-year-old McGreevy and Matthews, 26-year-old Palante, right? There's some hope here. A couple years from now, these guys could be an elite starting unit.
Yeah,
if they could keep them all together. I mean, some things have to go right, obviously, for them to all step up and pitch like they're capable of. But a lot of young talent.
And you could always add to it free agency later if they can kind of step up and show something first, right?
Yeah.
No, I mean that's certainly the attitude, right? I mean, as far as the younger talent, I mean, there's been opportunity. I think Lance Lynn came knocking. I mean, there's some other veterans that came knocking, and we just, I think, said no. I mean, we're focused on kind of the rebuilding. And
we're good.
Yep.
We're good, guys.
Yeah. Don't answer the door, right? So those guys are still looking for a job, but I agree. And I think that sums up the excitement of the Cardinals. I know we're in it now. We face the fact that we're in rebuilding. We're going to be maybe 500 this year. So if you accept that fact, then let's focus on kind of the rebuild and bringing these guys up. And then I guess you have that debate about maybe getting value if you're not going to go all the way. But
especially for the guys in their last year of the contract, right?
Right, exactly.
So, and that's where Helsley comes in. Arenado not so much, and they probably have to eat a bunch of his contract if they trade him. But I want to finish some more hope on the horizon. The top 3 prospects in the organization. So we already talked about one. So Quinn Matthews, not going to hit him up, but he's MLB's 45th overall prospect. So he should be in the rotation this year. I think he's earned it, but we'll see what's up. The top prospect in the organization was their 7th pick in the draft last year. J.J. Weatherholt, shortstop. I believe he's going to be starting in Double-A this year, if that is to be believed. He has a plus hit tool, above average power, left-handed bat. I mean, the problem is shortstop, right? So Mason Wynn, he's only 22, so we don't really want him to take that spot. That was our best WAR guy in the whole lineup. Mm-hmm. So now you're like, well, where can you play? And it keeps coming down to like, hey, Nolan, think you want to go somewhere yet, bro? And because then you can have Gorman go to third, and you can have Donovan go kind of rotating around. Then you open up a spot. But J.J. Weatherholt, I think he's going to advance fast. I think he's going to have a good year. I think he'll be, injury away from playing this year towards the end. I think he's going to be minors for the first half for sure. But if he hits his way onto the team with actual stats in the minors, I think he could come up sooner than later. So he's one worth absolutely targeting if you have minor league slots in your fantasy draft. Look at J.J. Weatherholt. Watch him the spring stats this year and see how he does. But he's already hit a home run in spring training this year. I think he's only 2 for 9, so it's not like he's tearing the cover off the ball. But, hey, he sent one out, which is better than we could say for 0-15 Mason Wynn, 1-15 Nolan Gorman, injured Jordan Walker with only his 2 hits. So, hell, in fact, he's got 2. He's kind of leading the team in hits.
It's pretty sad.
So, when you were saying the Cardinals are in a rebuild, reset, I want to hear your take on what does success look like this year for a Cardinals fan. If you're looking at this team, what makes Kerry happy at the end of the season?
Well, it's 2 different questions. What makes Kerry happy is a better record than the Brewers, a better record than the Cubs, but that's not going to probably happen, right? I'm going to pay dinner for another guy, but I know play another 5-10 wins. If they break 500, I think that's a success, and they can certainly do that. Things have to go their way a little bit, and there's a few wild cards there, and we could see some bright spots with the pitching come through early with the young guys coming up. But success, I would think, would be over 500. Make it interesting as far as against the Cubs and the Brewers. Again, that's kind of the Kerry kind of input there, but. I'm always an optimistic Cardinal fan to a fault. And so I probably add 10, 15 games to the record that I think they're going to be. Yep. And so I think that's one benefit of coming on this podcast. I did my homework, so I might not bet as much on the Cardinals now as far as dinners because
there's money this year.
Yeah, they're not as good as I thought they were. But no, 500, maybe 5 games over 500 would be a good year considering the stats and the information and kind of the view that we have right now.
So shameless plug for the Shrewdness. That's kind of why we're doing this, is just to educate folks on other teams in the league, educate ourselves mainly, selfishly, but also just to kind of spread awareness to others. Like, here's what's happening with all these different teams. Who's going to do great, who's maybe taking a step back, who's in rebuilding mode, that kind of thing. So I agree. Success looks a little different for every team this year. And I think you're right on it for the Cardinals.
All right, so I'm going to circle back to where we started with the projections on the over-under and what we think after going through this lineup, the pitching staff, who's coming up, who could be moved. And 75.5 is the over-under right now as of today. I see a team that screams dump salary and do an actual real reset for any players doing well at the deadline. The problem is Arenado and Sonny Gray have no trade clauses, but Helsley and Fetty do not. So I think if they can show anything and do something, who knows, man? Anything can happen in baseball. That's why they play the games. Maybe they all just, Nolan Arenado has a resurgent MVP type year. All the players decide to stay healthy, except for Jordan Walker's already hurt. And Nolan Gorman decides to walk and hit dingers, and everything works out great. And Miles Michaelis goes back to 3-4 years ago, Miles Michaelis version, and maybe they squeak into the upper 80s. That would be an optimistic take of the most optimistic takes. So 75.5, man, they could go over, but I think I'm going to lay the under for this year's St. Louis Cardinals team. I think they'll be probably the opposite of what we were looking for, 10 games under-ish, and we'll see what it looks like because I just don't see – they're not going to add anybody. They're not going to trade any of their depth to get anybody. So they're just going to have to do it all with what they got. I don't know. It's just hard for me to see that many things trending the right direction with so many question marks and no one coming in. What do you think, Kerry? I know you're a positive optimist. But
I guess if I took the 10 wins off of my kind of hedge, being a Cardinal fan, I'm probably right there at the 75. I was going to say 82 just because it's a game over 500 and just because of the being a Cardinal fan. But no, I agree. I mean, you bring up some good points, obviously. I mean, I've kind of enjoyed this conversation and learning the homework that you've done and kind of sharing that knowledge. But I'm still going to say 81.5, actually. And if they make it, I'll call back in and we'll discuss it. So
And gloat.
I told you they'd be better.
Yep.
All right, Pearl, what do you think?
I'm actually leaning a little bit over too. There's a big difference, I think, in 76 wins and 80 wins.
Yeah.
So I view this team as a slightly under 500 team. I think if they make the right moves early in the season and bring up some of these younger guys to fill in their elderly rotation guys that may or may not be hurt within the first month of play, I think they could compete. Their bats are maybe a little bit light on home run totals and so forth, but they got guys that can get on base. They've got guys that have been around a few years. Arenado's a wild card, like we talked about. He could come out and light up April and May and really get this team off to a hot start. And some of these, I think you mentioned it, Kerry, a couple times. Some of these guys just need some confidence, like they struggled last year. And a hot start in April really could set the tone. So I'm thinking more like 78 to 80 wins. I don't know if they'll get to, over 500, but I'm thinking just under 500. So I could see them being 77, 78.
Yeah. I mean, I can see him getting there too. When you figure last year, the worst team in the Central was Pittsburgh at 76 wins. But, man, I think Pittsburgh's going to be better. Cincinnati's going to be better. The Cubs are better. The Brewers are better. I see the Cardinals as the cellar dwellers this year of the Central, and the cellar dwellers probably mid-low 70s.
I think it's a three-horse. I don't know about that. That's kind of insulting. I think it's a three-horse race for the cellar between St. Louis, Pittsburgh, and the Reds. And Milwaukee, I don't think it's that much better. I mean, I see the Pecto at 79.8 wins, but we'll see. Time will tell.
We had our. I think we published Milwaukee, right? That's a pretty good team. They're pretty well rounded. Haven't lost a whole lot. So I think we all kind of agreed during that one. They're probably the front runners in the Central, but I don't see them. I don't see the Cardinals being obviously worse than the Reds or Pirates. So I agree. If they wound up in the cellar, okay, it wouldn't shock me, but I wouldn't say it's a slam dunk. So they could easily finish third.
They could, but I don't know. That's where we're at. So I think that finishes up our take on the St. Louis Cardinals preview for 2025. We're going to see how it plays out. That's why they play the games. It could be exciting. We have some young players to look at. We highlighted those. Some of the top part of the rotation looks strong, and they can certainly close out games if they get the lead late. So I think there's some definitely positive signs for this team. But over the course of a long season, I just see them kind of falling short this season. So we'll see. But
I have
that's
I have
it,
one
Brew. Over to
final
you.
question. I have one
Yeah.
final question. Carrie, do you have any bets placed that involve the beard this year?
I learned a lesson. Look on YouTube in 2016 when the Cubs won the World Series. I had to shave my beard, and so I haven't shaved it since. I've trimmed it since,
Trimmed
but
it, but not.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's to music and everything. I'll send you the link after the show. But very sad. Who thought the Cubs were going to win the World Series? I mean, I didn't, obviously. So.
Oh.
Yeah, that year probably was not your favorite year.
Well, thanks. Thanks a ton for joining us. It's been a great
Absolutely.
time. Appreciate your insight. Appreciate your dedication to the Cardinals. All those good things. I wish them well this season.
Yeah. No, thanks for the
Um,
invite. This was fun. This was really a good time. I appreciate the insight from you guys and inviting me to the show. And this is
yeah.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, we're hoping to, like I mentioned earlier, hoping to spread awareness among baseball fans this season, help people with fantasy drafts or betting Vegas odds, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So anyway, thanks for joining us, Shrewdness fans. Appreciate your support. Like and follow on our socials.
Subscribe to the channels. That's right.
Join the Patreon, as Lewis always says.
Join the Patreon.
That's it
All
for
right.
now, and
Stay shrewd.
stay shrewd.